formed, in a nutshell, just out of sheer anger and frustration. We were all in bands and lineups that we had been working so hard in for years.
I then went on to meet Meg, and when I was about 18, I joined a band that she was in with Willem. We kept that going for a few years, but it didn't really feel too right. I mean, I definitely couldn't relate to it personally.
We got really sick of it. Played the same songs for years with members that we didn't actually get on with, didn't have the same sort of vision. So that kind of just fizzled out. The very start of 2019, like January the 1st, we were like, no, we don't want to do this anymore.
On New Year's Day 2019, that we were going to start Vexed, and Vexed was going to be the band that we just wrote exactly what we wanted to write and performed what we wanted to perform, and we would wear what we want to wear, and we wouldn't let any other sort of person's opinions of what we should be or should sound like affect us. We were just going to do what we wanted to do.
Write whatever we wanted to write and just do what we wanted to do and just see what would happen.
Not long after that, we filmed the video for Elite, featuring CJ from Die Out As Murder. Not long after that, we filmed a second video for the single Dominate. They both did pretty well. Got us a lot of shows, actually.
We got offered a show in Switzerland, and so I put together a little European tour to kind of make up for that show. And before, as time was getting closer and closer to the shows, we kind of figured that we're going to need a bassist to come on tour with us, because kind of doing a whole European tour without a bassist could be quite risky.
Like late 2019, Meg asked if I'd come out to Europe with them and play bass for a couple of shows. I instantly clicked with the music, playing live with them. We had so much fun on tour. And then after being asked if I wanted to be a permanent member, joined straight away. So yeah, all happened pretty quickly.
We had such a good time. It was an amazing experience. And then when we got back, he decided that he would join. And that's basically how Vexed became Vexed. Growing up, I'd always been surrounded by so many different musicians and bands, and music was really present in my life from birth. But I never really kind of fully connected with it or decided I wanted to dedicate my life to it until I became a teenager. I had always listened to metal music because my mum was a huge Slayer fan, and metal was a big part of my life. But it wasn't until I was a teenager and I found other people that liked listening to metal, and I wasn't so much of an outcast anymore. It became an emotional part of my life, if that makes sense. And I sort of started loving it and connecting with it on a far deeper level. When I was about 13, I discovered Bring Me the Horizon. They were a huge turning point in my life because they were one of the first bands that I booked to go see live. And I stood in the crowd at Bring Me the Horizon show, and it was just a moment in my life where I suddenly felt so free and empowered, and just felt like that was where I belonged. And it was somewhere where I could finally let go of everything. And I remember just being in that mosh pit and thinking, fuck, I want to feel this good every single night for the rest of my life. And I don't want to just do it in the mosh pit, I want to do it on stage. And so I kind of got hooked on seeing live shows and experiencing the live atmosphere. And that's what made me want to be a musician. That kind of started from discovering Bring Me the Horizon, and then that led on to a million other bands.
So music's always been a big part of my life. I started playing music at a really early age. Both my parents were musicians, and they both really encouraged me to look at music as a hobby. They're probably a big part of why I'm doing this today, if I'm honest. I started with cello at the age of 4, played in a bunch of different orchestras. As I got older, I did some tours in Europe. Around the same time, that's when I started getting into heavier music and became more interested in it. My first kind of go-tos were Trivium, Slipknot and Chimera. They were kind of my first like go-tos, if you will. I started playing bass more and more seriously, and ended up playing in a couple of bands, did some cool tours and festivals as I got older. Then in like late 2019, I went out with Vexed in the EU, and here I am.
My dad's always been a musician from a young age, playing like every instrument under the sun. So I think he sort of gave me the gentle little nudge by buying me a guitar. At the time, I didn't really listen to anything guitar-based. It was all like Eminem and that, but I eventually got into Foo Fighters and Muse and stuff like that. So after about 2 years, I finally picked it up and thought, okay, like, let me have a crack at actually trying to play this. Then I discovered bands like Killswitch Engage and that, which was literally my first experience with metal. I pretty much immediately got hooked on it. Down-tuned all of my guitars and started trying to figure out how to downpick for more than 2 seconds. And then joined my first band when I was like 13, 14, started playing just little shows and stuff like that. It's about 10 people. We were shit, but I literally just got hooked on the feeling of playing live. I absolutely adored it. And I developed slowly but surely a passion for writing music as well, and in coming up with stuff and developing ideas, which I've always found really interesting, and it's always been something I want to do quite frequently.
So my stepdad always played guitar when I was younger. It kind of rubbed off on me because I wanted to play guitar as well, but I only wanted an electric guitar. So he said if I learnt some chords, stuck at it, he'd buy me an electric guitar, which he did about a year later, I think, something like that. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. It was a matte black Flying V. Yeah, really cool. And then I went to my first concert, gig, whatever, which was Red Hot Chili Peppers, just when they released Stadium Arcadium, and that was really cool. Didn't really have the attention span for guitar, so I tried bass for a bit. Didn't have the attention span for that either. And then at school, must have been about 14. Oh yeah, I was 14. Had to go on one of the drum kits, like on break at school, like on one lunchtime, snuck in and had to go. Terrible, obviously, but I thought that was it. I wanted to play drums. I had a friend of mine who lived down the road. He had a drum kit as well, so I harassed him to go over there like every day and just beat the shit out of them, basically, really badly. 14th birthday, I think it was, I got a drum kit, and here we are.
So we released our first 2 singles independently. They done fairly well, better than we were initially expecting. And then we started getting approached by a few people within the industry. We weren't entirely sure who we couldn't trust, so we thought we'll have a look for some decent management to try and take the weight off our shoulders.
And just on a whim, I sent our music to Tone Management on a Facebook post. And the same day, they actually messaged me back on Facebook and were like, Megan, can we have a phone call? And I was like, oh, fuck. Yes, definitely. And I was absolutely shitting myself. But we spoke on the phone the same day. And it was one of those moments where you can have conversations with people in any forms of life, but especially in the music industry, it can be really hard to know if somebody's a decent person. But the second that I spoke to Tom Bellhouse from Tone, I just knew that this was our guy. So we just clicked and we decided to start working together. And then from there, Tom was just banging down doors and shoving our music wherever he could get people to listen, which was really tough to start with. Nobody knew who we were. So after a quiet period, we finally had Paul Ryan from UTA contact our management team, and he was like, really like the music, can you guys come down to London and let's just have a chat? And it was one of those moments where I genuinely never thought that could happen. I knew that UTA and Paul specifically was the booking agent for Bring Me the Horizon, and a lot of other bands that I love and admire. And so it was monumental for me. So we went down to London and we spoke to Paul, and we really hit it off, and he really liked our music, and it was completely surreal, to be honest. Still don't really understand it. But yeah, so we agreed to work with UTA. And then again, the music industry loves to go quiet on you for a while. So we just started finishing off our album and focused on getting the recording done.
So we were driving down the M25 on the way to the studio, actually, to sort of finish off some loose ends for the album. And we have a group chat with our manager, and a message just popped up saying Napalm.
We were just like, this must be a joke. Like, he's got to be fucking kidding. Like, what is he talking about? Napalm as in, like, they've heard us? Like, what's happening? Anyway, hours went by and we were in the studio just like, Tom, like, what is going on? And he didn't call us. And eventually he got hold of us and he was like, Napalm really like your stuff and we need to have a talk. And it was, again, a moment where we happened to all be together in the same room when it happened. So it was really nice because we could all experience it with each other. But yeah, we mulled things over for a few weeks and read a lot of contracts, and eventually decided that Napalm were the label for us, and they are more than we ever thought we were worth or could imagine. And yeah, it all happened very quickly but very slowly at the same time. It's been a lot of hard work and determination for over a decade, but it all felt really quickly at the same time as well. So yeah, that's how we got Napalm.
Vexed to me represents 4 unapologetically honest musicians who do what we want, how we want, and I feel that honesty is reflected in our music and our lyrics. It's an outlet and tool to voice our frustrations and struggles with the current state of the world, that kind of combined with our own personal experiences. I've always struggled with verbally communicating how I feel and my emotions, and I've always found that music is a good way of kind of a tool for me to translate that, and the best way for me to kind of get those feelings out and heard. Vexed is an outlet to vent anger, frustration that we as a band and our listeners share.
Vexed for me is a huge personal moment because I spent my whole musical career, or whatever you want to call it, before Vexed, trying to fit into this sort of mold of what other people expected me to be or what other people wanted me to be. I think a lot of other female musicians can probably relate to having this pressure when you first start out to act, look, or perform a certain way or write a certain way, because we're constantly being compared to each other. And so it's really hard to try and find your own identity and what you like to do and write when you're just being compared to other girls all the time. Vexed was that moment where I was like, I don't fucking care anymore and I'm just gonna be me. And so whether that was writing lyrics that are completely out there and a lot of people will find difficult to hear, wearing what I want and just acting how I want, performing how I want, that's what Vexed is. And I feel a huge amount of freedom and just sense of individuality and finding who I really am. And it sounds really deep, but I was in old lineups and old bands where we were really liked for being somebody that I wasn't or that we weren't. And when Vexed kind of released our first songs, we got a lot of hate, and I found it really difficult to cope with to start with. I had a lot of hate towards the way I look and my weight and my abilities as a vocalist. And to start with, I found it really difficult. And then as time went by, I realised that I'd actually, even though it's shit getting hate, I'd actually much rather get hate for being who I am. So yeah, I'd much rather be hated for being me and writing songs that are original and true to me than being liked for something I'm not. So Vexed brought me that sense of freedom of just being who I am, and even if that's being hated for it, at least I'm just being myself and expressing myself in a way that makes me feel good, instead of trying to live up to other people's standards and expectations.
I always wanted to be in a band with this type of aggression, just balls to the wall, going for it, with members who are 100% committed and not flaky, and just all have the same vision, which is really hard to come by, hence why it's taken this long to find that band.
To me, it's mainly a means of genuine self-expression, you know, writing what we want to write without the influence of any kind of exterior social construct behind it. We sort of feel like, you know, people are going to chat shit whatever you do, so you may as well just do what you want to do, and if you can, sort of thrive in any hate that you are inevitably going to get from it. It's definitely, I think, you know, it's a platform to voice our opinions and emotions way more effectively, and you know, if people can relate to that, then that's a bonus for us. You know, there are multiple vibes we try to capture, so you know, we hope we have communicated them effectively, because there are a lot of things that we have tried to communicate that we all feel quite deeply about, especially when it comes down to specific emotions and feelings. So we've tried to base them upon topics that a lot of people can hopefully relate to.